The smartest person in the room almost never speaks first, not because they have nothing to say, but because they're watching what everyone else misses. You've probably seen it before, in a meeting, a classroom, maybe even at dinner. Someone sits quietly the entire time. No performance, no interruption, no need to prove anything. Then suddenly, one sentence, and the whole room goes silent. You think to yourself, why didn't I see that? But here's the strange part. That person wasn't trying to look intelligent. They were doing something most people mistake for weakness. They were listening, processing, connecting patterns nobody else bothered to follow. Psychology suggests that real intelligence often hides exactly there, not in the loudest voice, but in the quietest habits. Habits that look like weaknesses, but aren't. The first habit, they spend a lot of time alone, not because they're cold or antisocial, but because their brain needs quiet to process. Every conversation, every idea, every decision needs time to settle afterward. People call them closed off. What they're actually doing is thinking. The second habit, they ask questions that sound obvious. Why do we do it this way? How does this actually work? People around them sometimes find it exhausting. But that's just a brain searching for patterns, constantly, without an off switch. They get labeled as difficult, skeptical, overthinking everything. Really, they just refuse to accept things other people never thought to question. The third habit might be the strangest. They talk to themselves, mumbling while they work, arguing through a decision like there's someone else in the room. Psychology calls this self-directed speech, and it genuinely helps the brain organize thoughts faster and with more clarity. The problem is, every one of these looks like a flaw from the outside. Preferring solitude, labeled antisocial. Asking too many questions, labeled suspicious. Talking to yourself, labeled odd. How long have we been reading the signs completely wrong? Have you ever been misread like that? Some people find it easy to say, I don't know, without embarrassment, without hesitation. Others read that as weakness, but it's actually one of the clearest signs of deep intelligence, knowing what you don't know. The sharper the mind, the more clearly it sees how much it hasn't figured out yet. Then there are people who overthink small things. A throwaway comment from the morning, a decision that should have been simple. They turn it over and over, examining every angle. From the outside, it looks like indecision. From the inside, it's a brain running multiple scenarios in parallel, unwilling to settle for an answer that isn't good enough. They're not hesitating. They just refuse to accept the first answer that sounds right. And this one, they change their mind when the evidence changes. Society calls that having no backbone, but cognitive science calls it flexibility, the ability to update your mental model when reality shifts. It's one of the rarest capacities a human brain can have. We've built a world that rewards rigidity, while the most adaptable minds are quietly learning more from life than anyone else in the room. If you've read this far and quietly recognized yourself, there's a good chance you've been misunderstood more than you realize. And maybe that was never your flaw. Real intelligence doesn't announce itself, doesn't need validation, doesn't ask to be seen. It just keeps being curious, quietly, persistently, in ways most people don't notice until it's too late. There's a price for thinking differently than everyone else. And most people pay it for years before they understand why. At some point, almost every highly intelligent person has been told some version of the same thing. You're too much. Too intense. Too sensitive. Too serious. Too deep for a conversation that was just supposed to be casual. They learned early to dial themselves down. To give the shorter answer. To laugh at the simpler joke. To stop asking the fourth follow-up question when everyone else had already moved on. Not because they didn't have more to say, but because the room made it clear there wasn't space for it. And here's what that does over time. It teaches a deeply perceptive person to distrust their own perception, to second-guess the instinct that was actually right, to perform a version of themselves that fits, while the real version waits quietly for a conversation that's actually worth showing up for. The loneliness that highly intelligent people describe isn't about being physically alone. It's about being surrounded by people and still feeling like no one is speaking your language. The brain that won't let things go is the brain that solves them. You know, the person who brings up a problem 3 days after everyone else has forgotten it, and turns out to have been right the whole time? That's not stubbornness. That's a mind that genuinely cannot release a question until it finds an answer that actually holds. Highly intelligent people are comfortable sitting with uncertainty far longer than most. Not because they're indecisive, but because they know the first answer is almost never the real one. Everyone else closed the door. They're still standing in the hallway because they noticed something in the room no one else saw. This is also why they tend to have an unusually dark or dry sense of humor. To find something funny, your brain has to hold two incompatible ideas and recognize the gap between them. The sharper the mind, the faster it finds that gap, and the more absurd the world starts to look once you see it clearly. The humor isn't a coping mechanism. It's a side effect of seeing reality more precisely than the people around you. And then there's the habit that might surprise you most. They will tell you they were wrong, without being asked. Most people treat changing their mind as defeat. They double down, protect the belief. Highly intelligent people simply update. Quietly. Sometimes mid-conversation. No drama. Just a different position, held with the same confidence as the last one. It's not weakness. It's what it looks like when someone cares more about being accurate than about being right. How many of these have you been hiding? The late nights where your mind just won't stop. The questions you held back because you didn't want to seem difficult. The time you changed your opinion and someone used it against you. The moments you felt too much, thought too deeply, cared too long about something everyone else had already let go. None of that was a problem. It was a pattern. And patterns like that don't disappear. They compound. Quietly, persistently, over years, until one day the person who was always told they were too much turns out to be exactly enough for something that actually matters. The traits that made you feel out of place are the same ones that will make you irreplaceable, in the right room, at the right moment. The right room isn't a place. It's a condition. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from spending years in spaces that weren't built for the way your mind works. Not dramatic exhaustion, just a slow, grinding tiredness from constantly translating yourself, from who you actually are into someone the room can handle. You get so good at it that eventually you stop noticing you're doing it. You trim the thought before it finishes. You answer the surface question instead of the real one. You smile at the right moment and let the silence close over the thing you actually wanted to say. After long enough, you stop thinking of it as hiding. You start thinking of it as just who you are. But even after years of editing yourself down, there are moments when it breaks through. A conversation that catches you off guard, and suddenly you're 3 levels deep. A problem everyone else walked past, and you couldn't. A book that keeps you up until 2 a.m. not because you have to finish it, but because your mind is running so fast alongside it that stopping feels like interruption. A stranger who says something unexpected and you feel that rare, electric thing. Finally, someone speaking at full speed. Those moments aren't accidents. They're reminders. Your mind showing you what it looks like when it isn't managing itself. You're not tired. The translation work stops. You're just there, completely present, thinking at the speed you were actually built for. The right room doesn't have status. It has permission. Permission to think out loud without it being held against you. Permission to change your mind in real time. Permission to say, I don't know, and have that be the beginning of the conversation, not the end of it. The right room is anywhere people care more about getting it right than about looking like they already know. You don't just find it. Most of the time, you build it. One honest question at a time. One moment of staying in the discomfort of not knowing instead of reaching for the easy answer. The people who belong in your room will not need you to be smaller. They will pull you larger. And that grinding tiredness will simply stop. This is the part no one tells you. Understanding yourself doesn't fix anything on its own. You can recognize every pattern, nod along to every insight, and still walk back into the same room tomorrow and shrink yourself down to fit. Knowledge without a decision is just noise. Stop waiting to be understood before you allow yourself to take up space. Stop holding the question back until you're sure it won't make the room uncomfortable. The version of you that has been waiting, patiently, quietly, for the right moment, has been waiting long enough. The things that made you feel like too much are the things someone, somewhere, has been waiting their whole life to find. The depth, the questions, The way you stay up late turning a problem over long after everyone else has moved on. None of it was a mistake. It was always a signal, pointing toward the work only you can do, and the people who will recognize you the moment you stop hiding. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to be louder, or more confident, or easier to read. You just need to stop apologizing for being exactly this. The right people won't need you to explain yourself. They'll simply recognize you. The way you recognize a word in a language you thought only you still spoke. Intelligence was never your problem. The room was. Go find yours. And if you've watched this far, you probably already know why. Maybe something in this video touched a place you've kept quiet for a very long time. Maybe it was the feeling of being misread. Maybe it was the moment you finally recognized yourself. So remember this when the video ends. Intelligence doesn't need to be proven. It only needs to be allowed to be itself. And if this meant something to you, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Or maybe, keep it for yourself. Because maybe the person you've been thinking about since the beginning was you.